Hi everybody, so I've got a new painting video for you today, and today I'm going to be painting some extra wraiths. I'm going to add them to my unit of 3 wraiths. I already have some wraiths from my years of playing Necrons. I had 3 of these guys. That's kind of what they're going to look like when we're done. And I'm going to paint them in the same extremely simple way because I want them to match my old unit, which by now is really old and was actually the first army that I collected in 40k. So painted very simply, but I think it looks pretty decent for the small amount of effort involved. So I'm going to show you how to paint them in a very similar way. As you can see, what I've done with these guys is I've actually put a heavy washer on the bottom of each base. That's almost exactly the width of their original base. Just because these old metal models are so heavy and they're so prone to falling over, I want them to be nice and stiff so that they don't fall down. What are we using today? We're using Boltgun Metal. We're using my highlight color, Choas Black, or rather accent color, Choas Black, but you can use any color you want, of course. Badab Black wash, and Scorpion Green, potentially thinned with a little bit of Skull White later on. And that is it for these guys. Their bases are going to be done with some gray colors, which we'll get to in a little bit when we get to bases. So I'm going to tell you how to do their bases later on. Okay, without further ado, let's get going. Okay, one last note about this painting video today. You might have noticed from the title that this is going to be a speed painting video. This is not intended as in any way, shape, or form an instruction on how to paint, painting competition winning Necrons. I mean, what I'm going to show you today is what I did for my first ever 40k army, which was to speed paint it, but to make it look good enough to field and have it look pretty good on the tabletop. And that's what we're doing today. We're not going to do massive amounts of highlighting. I'm not going to show you any advanced techniques. Extremely basic stuff going on here, but I hope this will help you get your Necrons painted up very quickly, no matter what colors you choose. Alright guys, on with the show. Okay, so I've got a little bit of this Boltgun Metal out here. I haven't watered it down. I'm leaving it unwatered. We're going to be dry brushing this stuff on. Extremely simple. I mean, this is as basic as it gets. So we're going to get started on this guy here. And you're just going to take this, maybe take a little bit of this stuff off so it's not too clumpy. And here we go. Just go give it a whole little dry brush all over the entire surface of the model. There we go. Okay, so, continue dry brushing, and we'll be back in a bit. Okay, so here we are. The group of 3 has been dry brushed, simply with a Boltgun Metal, no other steps taken. Next step, equally simple. Badab Black. Take a little bit of that stuff, get it out somewhere. I'm going to take a bunch of it out here. You can water this down a little bit if you want. You can also use mixing medium. I'm actually just going to take it straight up. Straight up, no fanciness. Throw it down on the model. There we go. Give it a little wash. If you're started and it feels like it's too black, then water it down. But you can also get rid of clumps by just kind of running your brush over clumped areas. That'll kind of help you thin it down if it starts getting a little bit too thick. There we go. And you're just going to do that on the whole model. Give it a wash of Badab Black on the entire model. Back in a bit. Okay, so he's done up with Badab Black. So a nice little wash kind of went over him, gave him a nice cool sheen. And you're just going to do some Choas Black or whatever accent color you're choosing for your army. I think it's kind of cool to do an accent color on things like the shoulder blades, just kind of lets them stand out a little bit. And you're literally just going to do Choas Black on these shoulder blades. You're going to kind of just go for it right there. Let me stand up over here and give you a better view of some of this stuff. You're just kind of doing that. Now, I'm obviously going to do this a little more carefully. The one trick I would suggest is, take a smaller brush, and that way you're going to be able to do these under areas a lot better. Let me just zoom that in there. You're going to be able to do underneath here if you want to be that exact, that you want to paint these bottom parts here without hitting the actual model itself. That'll let you kind of do that. Okay, back in a bit. Okay, so here we have the 3 wraiths done with the black shoulder blades. flat black so far. We are going to eventually do some Boltgun Metal on that, a little bit of dry brushing, but more on that in a sec. I'm going to let that dry, but I'm not going to waste any time. While that's drying, I'm actually going to paint other parts of the model that that still need paint. And what we're going to do is we're going to do Scorpion Green. My favorite kind of green these days. I use it in a lot of different armies. Going to get a little bit of it. Oh, this is starting to harden up a little bit, unfortunately. I've got to buy myself another tub soon. Take a little bit of that Scorpion Green. I'm going to take a little bit of water it down slightly, not too much. That's a little bit too much, so I'm going to actually take some more paint to thicken it up. Okay, it's a little bit thicker there. Let's test a little bit, see how it looks on one of these guys. Is it thick enough or not? A little bit too thin still. I'm going to take a bit more over here. That should do it right about there. And literally, you're just going to be painting. I'm going to do the claws. I think I'm actually going to do these weird things they have here, parts of them as well. I'm going to show you how I do those later on. Right now, I'm doing kind of just a really sloppy job with a thick-ass brush right here. But for the more careful stuff, I've got a second brush ready to go to do those lines. So you're literally just going to do, if I can show you really quickly, you're going to do the claws. If you want part of this other weapon they have on here, the old model. And I'm also going to do these lines and things here. I want these to be green as well. So you're just literally going to do that more carefully and come back in a little bit. Alright, back in a bit. Okay, so that's what they look like with all their clobs and bits and bobs and all that stuff done. We are going to move on to, while this is drying, notice this is, I don't know if you can see, but it is literally still wet. I'm going to zoom in here. That paint is still drying. So I'm not taking any time to waste. I'm going to do a part of them that's not coming anywhere close near the green bits. I'm going to dry brush the tops of these shoulder blades a little bit. Why am I doing that? Just because right now it looks pretty flat. The color is pretty flat on it. It's not going to look that great. I'm going to add a little bit of shading, a little bit of depth by giving it kind of a metallic dry brush of Boltgun Metal. This is a very delicate dry brush. So I'm going to show you what I mean in a little bit. We've got some of this stuff here. I'm going to take off the vast majority of it. I'm going to do a real dry brush where I take off most of the paint from this stuff. So I'm going to test out on my thumb. That's a nice little trick that you can do. Test on your thumb to see how powerful it is. That's pretty good. So here we go with the first guy, just to show you what we're doing. I'm literally just kind of going very gently, very, very gently, just on the edges of him. You can barely even see it. I'm going to go a little bit across the middle area, very, very slightly. A little bit along the edges, just in the front there. And that's pretty much it. Let me show you what we have here, just so you can get a good view of what we've done. Here we go. Zoom in. Okay, you see the difference? Pitch black on this side, and dry brushed a little bit on this side. Now when we take it, it might look extremely, extremely bright. Maybe that's not the effect you want, but it doesn't. It's not actually that bright. When you take it into normal light, away from a strong light like that, you should be able to see the difference right there. Notice how this side looks just cooler. It looks like it's battle hardened a little bit. Looks like it's kind of beat up. This side just looks like someone just painted Choas Black on it. So that's why I recommend you do that. And look how fast that is. That was extremely fast. I'm going to finish these guys off and back to the next step. Okay, one just little quick extra thing. When you're doing the green, don't forget to do these little details over there on his chest. You're going to see on his chest there's little symbols and things, and you're going to want to do those with a nice small brush, because it adds a lot of coolness to the model. When someone picks it up, even after you tell them, sorry, my hands are shaking here because I'm trying to hold this at the same time. Even when someone picks this up and says, "Oh wow, it's a speed painted model," you're like, "Oh cool, well look, there's some little extra details done." So I recommend little tiny details like that. You know, it only takes a few seconds on each one, but that'll help the model stand out a little bit when people actually look at it closely. Okay, on to the next step. We are going to highlight the green bits. Right now it's very flat looking. Let me try to zoom in here if I can, so you can see. One more time. Let me just give that a little bit of a test here. As you can see, it's very flat looking, very flat green. I mean, if this is all you're going for, you know, that's fine, go ahead. But I'm going to try to do a little bit of highlighting for it. But again, we're doing speed painting style. We got no time to waste. Gaming time is a wasting. We're trying to get this stuff on the table to play with it. I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. We're going to take the same scorpion green we did before, take a bunch of it, dry, don't water it down, because we are going to be dry brushing. Put a little bit of it out here. And notice what I'm doing now. I'm taking a neutral brush, a brush that isn't this one. I'm taking a clean brush, and I'm going to take the white. Why is that? It's going to preserve the whiteness of the paint. So I'm putting it down. Looks like I've got a little bit more white than green there, so I'm going to take a little bit extra green. I want it to be pretty much 50-50 if possible. I find 50-50 makes a good dry brushing mix. Okay, and we're going to mash it together. There we go, mash all that stuff together. Turn your brush, because your brush will have bits of paint kind of in weird places. You don't want it to sort of start dry brushing strangely. And there we go. That is the compared to that stuff that we have over here. That's the normal green. That is the mixed green. And you know what? If you want, you can put a little bit more. It looks like I didn't have quite a I didn't quite have a 50-50 mix, so I'm going to put a little bit extra white in that general area. Okay, let's make it a little bit brighter. I'm feeling like having a little bit bright. A good rule of thumb is you can never really go too bright for a dry brush highlight, you know. I mean, you know, short of going full-on white. I mean, you can usually stay to nice bright colors because you want things to stand out. Okay, so we're going to take this and we're literally going to do the old trick where we get rid of most of the paint on the brush. And once again, you can test on your thumb or a different finger, so a different thumbnail. That's pretty good. I don't know if you can see that, but that's pretty good. And we're going to go for it. Just kind of wiping it on. Can get a little bit extra. It's a little bit too thin. There we go. That's sweet right there. Okay, hopefully you can see that. If anyone's wondering why you know, my camera angle is the way it is, that's because I'm doing this all on an iPhone, which is the same phone I use to do my battle reports, and I'm actually just putting the iPhone underneath my neck as I do this. So if it shimmies around, that's why. Okay, so you're just going to dry brush it. Really basic stuff. I mean, give you an example of what some of this looks like up close so that you can actually see the effect take root. Oh, come on, get in there, zoom. Okay, iPhone is failing. Here we go. There we go. Look how much more interesting that looks now with a little bit of dry brushed highlighting going on. You can actually sort of see some of those highlights taking root. And really basic dry brushing technique, but it looks a lot cooler than just if you didn't dry brush it. So finish that up on all your guys, and we'll be back in a bit. Okay, so we finished doing the dry brush on these guys, and as you can hopefully see, it creates a little bit of depth, a little bit of interest in those weapons that they have, makes them a little bit more interesting to look at. And it didn't take very much time. That dry brushing took probably about 20 seconds per model, maybe not even. That extra step. So it's worth doing a little dry brush highlight, even though you're speed painting. Last thing we're going to do is talk about little mistakes and things. Like if you look here, for instance, down here, you'll notice that some of the paint has bled over onto the body of the model. When you're speed painting, this is inevitable. I mean, you are going for speed over accuracy, right? There's going to be little tiny mistakes all over the place where things bled through. That's fine, because it's better to just do it quicker and then fix it up when you're speed painting. We're not going for golden demon quality here, folks. So I'm going to take a little bit of water, and I actually have some of the leftover Boltgun Metal still like drying away over here. As you can see, it's actually kind of flaked in together. But I'm not going to waste that paint. Why waste it? This is a testament to how fast I'm speed painting these guys. This paint is still not dry, and this is from several steps ago. So I'm going to wet it down, take a little bit of paint off, and I'm literally just going to fix it myself. I'm going to just fix it in there. A little bit of little bit of paint there. Look at that, fixed. If you really want to, you can also take Badab Black then and kind of fix it up after it dries. So go look at your model, look for places where you've had little mistakes crop up. Let me see if I can find another one for you here somewhere. I'm sure there's some mistakes. Okay, this is hard to see, but I'll give you, maybe we'll be able to see some of it. Hold on, let's get some lighting going on there. Hard to tell, I don't know if you can tell, but a little bit of this stuff has bled over, so I'm just going to clean it up, the places where it's bled over onto his hand there, the green. You know, just go around, fix up the little mistakes that you've had during this process of dry brushing, and we'll be back in a bit. Okay, the race continues. We're at a race to the finish here. We've done the model for the most part. I mean, you know, if you want to add details, go ahead and add them. I mean, you don't have to just leave them as bare bones as I have, but you know, we're moving on to the next phase, which is to work on the bases, to paint up the base. You got to have the base completed. Really rounds out the model nicely. What I've done here is I have watered down some Codex Grey paint, a little bit of water there, so standard watering down just so that it doesn't clump up. And you're literally just going to take it and you're going to just paint the actual base itself. Let's see if I can show you just a real basic method. Literally, you're just painting over it. Just go ahead and paint it. Don't be shy. Go do a full-on gray coat on your sand there that you've got on the base. Come back and we'll continue. Okay, so we've got the bases dried and ready to go. I'm going to take some Fortress Gray now, a lighter shade of gray. Again, ready to, you know, you take it with no water. You're going to be using it for dry brushing purposes. This stuff is actually, that I have here, is actually pretty darn dehydrated already. Got to get some new stuff of this, but that's actually going to work pretty well for our purposes. You know, as we can see, it comes out pretty nicely still. Let's do the old test on the finger. Yeah, it could actually be a little bit more, so maybe I took too much of that stuff off, but looking pretty good. And you're just going to dry brush the base itself. Boom, look at that. Look at that base come alive as you dry brush it. So, you know, you're going to get going on that. Let's get a little bit more. Starting to crinkle off some of the excess rock here, but you can do the base. There we go. Okay, so just do that. I'm going to show you up close kind of what some of it looks like here. So dry brushing is helping us out. And once we're done that, we're going to do the next step. Okay, so with dry brushing done, I'm going to do another Badab Black wash over this just to take it down a notch because it's a little bit too bright for me. So just a little bit of Badab Black there. I've got an old brush with beat up bristles. I'm really just going to go very gentle over the top. Very gently. Why are you doing this gently? Because the wetness of the Badab wash might start dislodging some of the rocks that you've glued on for your base, you know. Especially if you've used PVC glue. So very gently. You don't want to, you know, don't mash it too much. Don't, you know, jam into there. Make sure you're gentle with it and do that. And, you know, be exact. Kind of just go nice and slowly. Wash into all the crevices. Back in a bit. Okay, so we're finished with that step, and we're going to add some static grass to the base. Pretty basic stuff. You're going to take some PVC glue, some, you know, regular white glue. Generic, you know, white glue. Throw a little bit of that stuff on there, on some kind of paper or wherever you're going to put it. Get a little good amount there. Okay, cool. We got a little bit of stuff there. And what I like to do is I like to take an old brush, like a beat up brush, one that I use for, you know, like dry brushing, things like that. And you're just going to take that and you're going to put it, you're going to dip some glue and take that glue and put it in places where you want the grass to go. And a good place to pick is places where some of your basing material might have kind of accidentally, you know, come off while you were doing some painting and other stuff. That's a great way to hide little mistakes where the basing material kind of disappears or something. You know, I'm going to throw down a little bit of glue over here. You know, I just kind of want to do it however, you know, suits your fancy. I'm going to have a little bit kind of this going down onto the edge of this base here. Need a little bit more in the front. You know, however you're going to do that, you're using essentially white PVC glue to set up the surface for this stuff. And in we go. So I'm going to do it this sort of way, just so that I don't lose particles. You can just particle up, drop some this stuff on it. I'm going to show you kind of how that looks. You know, just kind of being very generous with it, because you're going to shake the rest of that off. You know, let it sit for a second and start to shake it off. Nice and gentle so that we don't snap the model. Going to take it and put it a different direction. And I'm going to give it a little blow. A little bit of air. Oops, dropping the camera there. Okay. Move some air there, and as we can see, there we go. A little bit of basing material in there. Now, some of the stuff that's you see a little bit of glue coming out there, that's going to dry, so don't worry about that too much. If you're really worried about it, you can take a little tiny tuft and kind of jam it in there. But that kind of stuff is going to dry off later on, so you don't have to worry about that too much. Okay, and just do that, and we'll be on to the next step. Just a little note: so you've got this brush that you use for the glue. Wipe off as much of that glue as you can. Get rid of it. As much as possible. You know, dip it in some water, shake it around, and if need be, if you touch it and it's still kind of sticky, just put it under a sink and use regular soap or regular dishwashing liquid. That should do it. It actually feels pretty okay now. It's been washed out, wiped out. It's pretty good, ready to roll. Okay, the last step we are going to do is we're basically done. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to make this base nice and black on the sides. It's kind of gunky looking, doesn't look that good. There's places where it didn't quite get primer there, probably because I was holding it with my fingers to prime it, that kind of thing. We're just going to do that. So very simple stuff. You know, you take some Choas Black, wherever that went. There we go. Oops. I'm doing all this one-handed, if you're wondering why. It looks rather challenging. Get a little bit of that Choas Black. I'm running out of this tub here. I've got a spare one, but for the time being we're going to finish off. And water it down a little bit, but not too much. You want it to be pretty thick on the base. And then just go for it. Hold the model and hit that base with black. Make it nice and black on the sides. Give it some order and some unity. Here, I'm going to put this brush down and show you what it looks like. Okay. Choas Black, right? No Choas Black over here. Moving to where you can see the Choas Black has started. Very basic. There we go. Okay, here they are, finished and ready to go, ready for the tabletop. Last thing we're going to do is I'm going to seal these with some sealant over here. I've got the anti-shine stuff, but I'm sure you use other stuff. Maybe you've got GW stuff. It's all good. I hope this video has given you some ideas on how to speed paint your own Necrons. As you can see, you can achieve a very decent effect with not that much effort. I mean, these guys were probably painted in, I don't know, about an hour or so. Give and take, because I took time to make the video and I took some breaks to do some work, that kind of stuff. But I mean, not a lot of time to paint these guys once I had put them together. You don't have to paint your Necrons the same way I do. If you want to pick a different Necron style, you don't want to go silver. I know that's something a lot of people want to think about these days, because you don't want to have an army that looks the same as everyone else's. Then the one recommendation I would give you, if you don't want to go silver Necrons, if you want to do some weird and wacky color, is pick a bright color. Pick a color that's going to reflect light. Notice how this color, this gray, this Boltgun Metal, reflects light very nicely. It gives them a striking quality, even though you haven't put that much effort into painting them. Pick a color that's bright if you're going to pick a speed painting color that's different than silver. Something that looks interesting, that isn't just black and dark and dreary and is going to look boring. Something that has a little bit of sheen to it. Alright guys, as always, if you have any questions, post them below in the comments, and thanks again for watching. Keep painting.